I'm live. It's Sunday morning. I'm reading The Laird and the Lady, and I'm reading chapter 14. It's a short chapter, so I manage it this morning. It's Sunday. The Laird and the Lady, it's a book about Marylda and Rowan. They are married now, but they are from very different backgrounds. She is an American millionaires, and he has a castle in the Highlands of Scotland, Castle Cloud. Now we have investigated Emilie and her connection with Marylda, and it goes on. Spring cleaning, chapter 14. In spite of Marylda's protest that her sudden tears were nothing to worry about, Rowan insisted on carrying her upstairs and putting her to bed. I was a bloody fool to let her go on so long, he thought anxiously. I was so excited to find out what happened next that I hadn't the decency to remember that it is a frightful strain on her. It's damned unfair that she takes all the hard knocks while I find that my curiosity is rapidly getting stronger than my fear of spooks. He noticed the blue stains of fatigue under her eyes and felt increasingly remorse. To console him, she drank a glass of water in which 2 triple bromides were still fizzing and pretended to fall asleep. Rowan had insisted that she made no further experiments for a long time. But did he really believe that she would leave Hector and Roderick in their lonely hells a moment longer than she could help? Or was he being sensible? Would it be wiser to wait until they have been to London for a holiday? When Georgina came home the day after tomorrow, there would be no opportunity to do anything more. So it would have to be tomorrow. But did she know enough to tackle it yet? She would like to have discussed the implications of the final sequence with Rowan, the one she had just seen before she cracked. Why had Roderick seemed just as important as Hector? Why had the oath of fealty the insistence of a bruised nerve? Were there 2 ghosts in the old nursery? The moon shone through the open window, giving fugitive colour to the embroidered curtains of the wide bed. The image of the 2 men blurred as a more vivid picture of Georgina came into focus. A young Georgina lying in this same bed, hearing the rocking horse overturn, listening to the lament as her husband's body was carried to the churchyard. Is Georgina the more important ghost? But that is silly. Georgina is an extremely healthy old woman. But Emilie was a ghost because she preferred to live backwards instead of forwards in time. Hector is a ghost because he is caught in the present of his dying. Was part of Georgina's personality left behind in the misery of knowing that even a son for Hector was not enough to free him from Emilie? This explains why Georgina is so masculine. The bride and the mother are in pawn to fear. Only the woman who was brought up as a boy has continued to grow in the arid soil of duty. This is why she refused to marry Alistair. It wasn't because she lacked the courage to risk another tragedy. Emilie, with her self-love, her desire for things which could armor her against being hurt by people, kept Georgina and Hector in exile from each other. Marylda was getting drowsy. How shall I give them back their marriage in heaven? They are waiting for their heaven. Rowan slept until 8 and woke to see his wife sitting on the edge of the bed smoking a cigarette. "Good God, what are you doing up so early?" he said, disconcerted that he had not had a chance to make sure she had a lazy morning. "I've got the extra clues we needed," she said cheerfully. "I've already telephoned Duncan and told him to come over before lunch. He's staying the night." "But we're going to Inverness. We could do a cinema and then drop in at Dalloch for dinner." She smiled. "No, darling. That was the plan you made last night when you hoped to keep me out of mischief until Georgina came home." "Why do you want Duncan?" "It's only fair to let him in on the last act, and I think it may help Roderick to have him with us. Aunt Emilie and Uncle Roderick? Am I the only member of the cast who wasn't billed in the 1900s? Neither of you appeared, darling, only me. That's why I'm insisting on playing the lead. Roderick was also the master of Cadry, so Duncan understudies for him, and you are the Laird to my lady. When and where does the curtain go up? In the old nursery, after the servants have gone to bed. But need we do it yet? Wouldn't it be more sensible to give yourself a break? And wake in the night to hear someone sobbing in the room above and know we hadn't tried to do something about it? I used to pretend it was owls, said Rowan. So did I. I don't want to seem obtuse, but why do you think Roderick is here? If he's got to haunt, why not in South Africa, where he died? Unless I've got the setup wrong, I'm almost sure he killed himself and came back to what he imagines is the scene of his crime. He died of enteric. There's a memorial window to him in Dalloch Church, and suicides don't rate stained glass. I'm talking about facts, not evidence, she said firmly. Anyway, Duncan may be able to tell us more about it. He's going to spend the morning searching through his father's diaries, particularly the months in which there might be details of Roderick's death. How do you know about Alexander's diaries? He asked with a twinge of jealousy. Duncan and I looked through them, not very carefully, before the New Year's party. I wanted to find out if there was any reference to Hector being jealous, but there wasn't, so it was a waste of time. Jealousy is always a waste of time, said Rowan, and was surprised to find he really meant it. Though Robbie was profoundly relieved when Rowan asked him to open the hide and help to clean it, he displayed no emotion. I'm very glad that I can show you the way to move the stones, he said. I shall be 78 next month, and the knowledge that the secret might die with me has been a grave responsibility. I will instruct Agnes to provide us with brooms and such like. We shall also require several buckets of hot water, for there is a prodigious quantity of dust. He chuckled. We had better do the nursery too, for if I'm not mistaken, the room will soon be put to its proper use. Surely there isn't another even more vital secret which Marylda is keeping from me, thought Rowan. Robbie, seeing his embarrassment, patted him on the shoulder. Don't I always know before the salmon begin to run? He said blandly. Her ladyship has only been waiting until the rocking horse is free for a child to ride, and unless I'm losing the sight in my old age, there will be bonfires lit before the end of the year. On his way back to the castle, Rowan met Marylda, who was carrying a basket and a pair of secateurs. I'm going to get some flowers, she said. I want to have lots of them in the hide. He parted from her at the gate of the kitchen garden and watched her walk purposefully along the wide path among ice-spangled fruit trees. How does she manage to make ghosts seem natural, he wondered. Why is everything so different since she came to Cloud? Why is everyone so much happier, so much closer to each other? His questions remained unanswered, for he was far too modest to recognize that it was because she loved him more than she loved herself. In the steamy, scented warmth of the hothouses, Marylda found it more difficult to sustain her pose of brisk efficiency. Whatever happens, I mustn't let Rowan know I'm afraid. Panic is horribly infectious, and there's far too much fear in the nursery already. She made herself concentrate on the flowers. What a nuisance that Emilie was so inordinately fond of carnations. They were so difficult to arrange. But if she used birch bronzes to support them, they wouldn't look so formal, and she would take plenty of buds and their own foliage. She filled her basket with colour, palest pink to crimson, citron to dusky purple. She fetched another basket from the potting shed and went into the house where Anderson grew his early tulips. No, she didn't want either hyacinths or tulips. What would she put in the Laird's room? They must be bridal flowers. Where would Georgina have wished to spend her honeymoon? Somewhere carefree and vivid enough to blot out the drab actuality of a week in Edinburgh. The Riviera, which to her would be a country of eternal sunshine and blue sea, for she had seen it only through picture postcards sent by Hector. While Marylda cut sprays of mimosa, pink and yellow freesia, white cyclamen, her thoughts ran on. Could she rely on Hector's vision of his bride being stronger than Georgina's bitter memories of flannel nightgowns and pigtails? Yes, she would at last see herself in a lover's eyes. Her hair, bright as new copper, loose on the pillow, her skin very white through the fragile lace. Marylda found she had been humming Nanny Lovell's song. "Sing me home," said the long-lost lady. "They must have music as well as flowers. I will tell Robbie to watch for a light in the window." She was in her bedroom arranging the last of the mimosas when Duncan's car came up the drive. She waited until she heard Rowan calling for her and ran downstairs. He was standing with his hand on Duncan's shoulder, and they were laughing together. "Isn't she lovely?" he said proudly. "Note that delicate smudge of green on the side of her nose. It brings out the fleck of green in her eyes." She took a compact from the pocket of her slacks and studied her face in the mirror. "It's only a bit of leaf," she protested. "I think it looks rather charming. An al fresco variation of the 18th century patch." She smiled at Duncan, relieved that he was so obviously glad to have no secrets from Rowan. Emilie would have been pleased to recognize that her glamour was so easily translated into secure affection. So this was another proof of progress, as Marylda. "Any fresh data from Roderick?" she asked. "I told Rowan you were trying to find more in the diaries. I found 2 pages stuck together. It had been done so neatly that unless I had been searching carefully through the right months, I should never have noticed it." He handed her a typewritten page. "I copied it out for you. It's an extract from a letter written by the CO of his battalion." Rowan read over her shoulder. "Captain Roderick Cardry was a most gallant officer and would never have deliberately deprived Her Majesty of his services in the field, had not the balance of his mind been disturbed by the debilitating effects of a sharp bout of fever, combined with ulceration of the tongue, which in spite of the assurances of the M.O. he believed to be cancer. He took his own life by shooting himself through the mouth. As you have already been informed, his death took place on the 19th of June. I suggest you regard this information as strictly confidential, as in consideration of the relatives of a man who has shown himself tireless in duty and an example to all who served with him. I have taken it on my own responsibility to enter his name in the casualty list as died of fever while on active service." "Oh, poor Roderick," Marylda exclaimed. "But how did he break his oath? He didn't tell anyone. I'm sure he didn't tell anyone." The man looked at her in consternation. "Tell anyone what?" said Rowan. "I don't want to talk about it yet. We'll all know the details tonight." She forced a smile. "We're going to be too busy this afternoon to have time for jittery tummy. I want the wall taken down, the wall that was built to close the turret stairs." "Add crowbars, etc. to the list of equipment required," said Rowan to Duncan. "We can chuck the rubble from the battlement walk into the garden. Any more orders, milady?" "I want you both to promise not to worry about me, and to be very tolerant if I have illogical ideas. I want you both to wear full dress tonight, though perhaps we had better not change until the servants have gone to bed." "I'll pop over to Dulloch and fetch mine directly after lunch," said Duncan. "We may be a bit slow," said Rowan gently, "but at least you can trust us to give you everything we've got. We both love you a great deal, my darling." That's the end of chapter 14. Chapter 15 is fealty.